The lights on scanner station Kepler 442 blinked red for the first time in 3 years. Senior scanner Veltar stopped drinking his morning nutrient solution and stared at the readings. Something big was moving through deep space, and it was heading toward Council territory. Veltar had worked at the monitoring station for 15 years. He had seen asteroids, comets, and space debris. He had tracked merchant ships and military vessels. He had even spotted a few pirates trying to sneak past Council borders. But he had never seen anything like this. The energy signature was massive. The computer systems kept recalculating the size, but the numbers made no sense. According to the readings, whatever was out there was bigger than a space station. It was moving under its own power, following a straight path toward the Proxima system. Veltar's 6 arms moved quickly across his control panels. He ran the scan 3 more times. Each time the results were the same. Something enormous was approaching Council space, and it was not in any of their databases. The Zephyrian scanner operator called his supervisor immediately. Within minutes, Station Commander Thysicol arrived at the scanner room. The tall, blue-skinned commander looked at the readings with growing concern. "How long have you been tracking this object?" Thysicol asked. "About 20 minutes, Veltar replied. "It appeared at the edge of our long-range sensors. Commander, the energy readings are unlike anything we have seen before." Thysicol studied the data. The object was still too far away for visual confirmation, but the energy signature suggested advanced technology. The power output was enormous, much larger than even their biggest military ships. "Send an alert to Council Command," Thysicol ordered. "Priority 1, unknown vessel approaching Proxima system. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. The message reached Council Command within minutes. Admiral Kethvar of the Drachnari Hegemony was in a planning meeting when his aide burst into the room. The 4-armed admiral looked annoyed until he saw the expression on his aide's face. "Sir, we have a first contact situation," the aide said, handing over a data pad. Kethvar read the report twice. His red eyes widened with each line. A ship larger than their biggest battlecruiser was approaching from unknown space. It had not responded to any communication attempts. Its technology appeared far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. "Alert all fleet commanders," Kethvar ordered. "I want every available ship moved to the Proxima system. And contact the Council immediately. They need to know about this." Back at the monitoring station, more details were becoming clear. The long-range telescopes had finally focused on the mysterious object. When the first images appeared on their screens, everyone in the station fell silent. It was definitely a ship, but unlike any vessel they had ever seen. The hull was black, so dark it seemed to absorb light. Strange patterns covered its surface, geometric designs that hurt to look at for too long. The ship's shape was both alien and somehow familiar, like something from a half-remembered dream. "By the ancient stars," whispered Veltar. "Look at the size of that thing." The computer calculated the ship's dimensions. 15 kilometers from front to back, 3 kilometers wide, 2 kilometers tall. It was larger than some of their space cities. The energy readings suggested it could power an entire planet. Scanner Thisara, a young reptilian officer, pointed at her screen. "Commander, look at these readings. The ship is not using any propulsion system we recognize. How is it moving?" Thysicol studied the data. The mysterious vessel showed no exhaust trails, no energy discharge from engines, no gravitational disturbance from faster-than-light drives. Yet it was clearly moving at incredible speed toward Council territory. "Send everything to Council Command," Thysicol ordered. "All sensor data, all images, everything. They need to see this." The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 4 hours later. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the great chamber on Nexus Prime. The massive circular room buzzed. With nervous energy, a species after species reviewed the sensor data. "High Counselor," Sarthon called for order. The ancient crystalline being had served on the Council for over 200 years. He had overseen first contact with dozens of new species, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Fellow Council members," Sarthon's voice echoed through the chamber, "we face an unprecedented situation. An unknown species has entered our space with technology that appears superior to our own. We must decide how to respond." Counselor Velnara of the Aquatic Hydros delegation spoke first. "The ship's size alone suggests a species with massive industrial capabilities. They could have built this vessel only if they control significant resources. The energy readings concern me more, added General Mextar of the Hegemony Forces. That ship produces more power than our entire home fleet. If they are hostile, we may not be able to stop them. Council Security Chief Torgon, a massive bear-like creature from the Ursoid Collective, growled his opinion. Unknown does not mean hostile. We should attempt communication before considering military action. We have tried communication, Admiral Kethvar reported via holographic link from his flagship. The vessel has not responded to any of our transmission attempts. They continue on their current course toward Proxima Tertius. The Proxima system was a contested area where 3 council species had competing territorial claims. Mining operations, research stations, and military outposts filled the system. If the unknown ship reached Proxima, it would encounter thousands of council citizens. How long do we have? Asked Councillor Jexta of the Insectoid Mentari Collective. Approximately 60 hours until the vessel reaches the outer edge of the Proxima system, Admiral Kethvar replied. I have assembled a joint task force to intercept them. 12 heavy cruisers, 48 destroyers, and the battlecruiser Infinite Glory. The council chamber filled with worried chatter. The Joint Task Force was the most powerful military formation in council history. Ships from multiple species working together, armed with the best technology the council possessed. If that force could not handle the unknown vessel, nothing could. Are we certain this is a military threat? Asked Dr. Sylvan, the council's chief xenobiologist. Perhaps this species is simply unaware of our communication protocols. Their technology might be so different from ours that our signals appear as background noise to them. That is possible, admitted Zarthon, but we cannot ignore the implications of their technology. A species capable of building ships of this size could pose an existential threat to the council. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for immediate military action. Others pushed for more diplomatic attempts. A few suggested fleeing the region entirely until they understood what they were dealing with. Finally, Zarthon called for a vote. All in favor of Admiral Kethavar's proposal to intercept the unknown vessel with military force, while continuing attempts at peaceful communication. 32 of the 47 council members voted in favor. The decision was made. The Joint Task Force would meet the mysterious ship at the edge of the Proxima system. They would try to communicate, but they would be prepared for war. As the council session ended, each representative returned to their home worlds to prepare their people for what might come. Some species began evacuating their citizens from the Proxima system. Others moved their fleets into defensive positions around important worlds. On scanner station Kepler 442, Veltar continued to track the approaching vessel. The ship maintained its steady course, showing no signs of slowing down or changing direction. Whatever the beings inside that massive ship wanted, they were determined to get it. The unknown vessel continued its approach to Council space, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire galactic civilization. In 60 hours, they would have their answer about what lay inside that dark, impossible ship. The galaxy held its breath and waited. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Infinite Glory, watching the most powerful fleet in Council history take formation around his flagship. 12 heavy cruisers hung in space like metal giants, their weapons powered and ready. 48 destroyers darted between the larger ships, their sensor arrays sweeping space for any sign of the approaching vessel. The Draknari Admiral's 4 arms worked steadily at his command console. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an ominous glow. Every crew member felt the tension that comes before battle, even though they hoped this would remain a peaceful encounter. Fleet status report, Kethvar commanded. All ships report ready. Admiral, replied his tactical officer Mexkara. Weapon systems charged, shields at maximum power. The fleet is arranged in standard intercept formation. Kethvar nodded. The intercept formation was designed to surround an enemy ship, while providing maximum firepower coverage. If the unknown vessel proved hostile, they could attack from every direction at once. It was the most effective military tactic the Council had developed over centuries of warfare. Communications, any response to our transmissions? Kethvar asked. Nothing, sir, reported the communications officer. We have broadcast on all known frequencies in 17 different languages. The unknown vessel continues to ignore our attempts at contact. Through the bridge view screen, Kethvar could see the edge of the Proxima system. Somewhere beyond that invisible boundary, The mysterious ship was approaching. Soon they would have their first face-to-face encounter with whatever species had built that massive vessel. Lieutenant Thaisara, the young reptilian officer who had first spotted the ship, worked nervously at her sensor station. "Admiral, I am detecting a massive energy surge at the system's edge." "On screen," Kethvar ordered. The view screen shimmered and focused on a point of space that had been empty moments before. Suddenly, reality seemed to bend and twist. Light stretched and warped as something enormous dropped out of. Faster than light travel, the unknown ship appeared like a nightmare made real. Every crew member on every ship in the fleet felt the same primal fear their ancestors had experienced when facing apex predators. The vessel was even larger than the sensor readings had suggested. Its black hull seemed to absorb light from nearby stars, creating a dark void in space shaped like a ship. The geometric patterns on its surface pulsed with faint energy, creating hypnotic designs that made crew members look away after staring too long. The ship's very presence seemed wrong somehow, as if it belonged in a different universe entirely. "By all the ancient gods," whispered Mexcara. "How did they build something that large?" The unknown vessel hung motionless in space, apparently studying the Council fleet. Its sensors swept over the assembled ships with invisible energy beams that made their own detection equipment malfunction and spark. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, his voice shaking, "I am detecting some kind of scanning beam. It is examining our ships in detail, but I cannot determine the technology being used." Kethvar straightened in his command chair. This was the moment that would determine the future of the Galactic Council. He opened communication channels to address the unknown ship directly. "Attention, unknown vessel. This is High Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You have entered Council space without authorization. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." The response came not through their communication systems, but directly into the minds of every living being in the fleet. The voice carried no emotion, but underneath lay harmonics that suggested vast intelligence and barely contained power. "We are the ones you call human. We have come seeking those who would claim dominion over the stars. Stand aside." The word human meant nothing in any council database, but the casual dismissal in that mental voice sent chills through crew members of dozens of different species. This was not a request or a negotiation. It was a command from a superior to inferiors. "Unknown vessel identifying as human," Kethvar broadcast, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am authorized to speak for the Galactic Council. We welcome peaceful contact with your species. Please explain your purpose in this system." The response came immediately, still speaking directly to their minds. "Your council claims authority over territories you did not earn. Your fleet's patrol systems you do not deserve. We have come to correct this situation." Admiral Kethvar felt ice form in his stomach. This was not first contact with a curious alien species. This was a confrontation with something that considered the entire Galactic Council to be trespassers in their own space. "Human vessel," Kethvar tried again. "We are willing to discuss territorial boundaries through peaceful negotiation. There is no need for conflict between our peoples." The alien ship remained silent for several minutes. During that time, its scanning beams continued to examine every ship in the Council fleet. The beams penetrated their hulls as if the metal armor was transparent, mapping internal systems with impossible precision. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Your weapons are crude. Your technology is primitive. Your tactics are predictable, yet you threaten us with force." "We seek only to defend our territory," Kethvar replied. "If you withdraw from Council space, we can arrange formal diplomatic contact through proper channels." "Proper channels," the voice repeated, and there was something that might have been amusement in the mental tone. "You assume we recognize your authority to establish proper channels." The human ship began to move. It did not accelerate gradually like normal vessels powered by rockets or ion drives. It simply started moving at incredible speed, as if the laws of physics were suggestions rather than absolute rules. "Battle stations," Kethvar shouted. "All ships prepare for evasive action." The Council fleet scrambled to respond, but their targeting systems could not lock onto the human vessel. It moved through space like a dancer, weaving between their ships with impossible grace. Every time their weapons tried to track it, the ship was already somewhere else. "How are they moving like that?" demanded Mexcara. "Our sensors show no propulsion system." "Admiral," called the sensor operator, "I am detecting massive gravitational distortions around the human ship. They appear to be manipulating space-time itself for propulsion. Kethavar had seen enough. This species possessed technology so far beyond Council capabilities that resistance might be pointless. But he had sworn an oath to defend Council territory, and he would not abandon that duty easily. All ships prepare to fire warning shots, Kethavar commanded. Target their path, not their hull. Show them we are serious about defending this space. The combined firepower of 72 warships lit up the darkness. Energy beams and particle weapons created a deadly light show as the Council fleet demonstrated its military might. The warning shots were carefully aimed to pass close to the human ship without actually hitting it. The human vessel continued its impossible dance through space, completely ignoring the weapon's fire. The voice spoke again, and this time there was definitely amusement in the mental tone. Impressive display. Your species has learned to make pretty lights in space. Then the voice grew serious. Now observe what real technology can accomplish. The human ship stopped moving and hung motionless in space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then crew members throughout the Council fleet began reporting system malfunctions. "Admiral," the tactical officer called out, his voice rising with panic. "I am losing weapons control. All targeting systems are going offline. Navigation is failing," reported another officer. "I cannot maintain our position." Across the fleet, identical reports flooded communication channels. Ships that had been powerful instruments of war moments before were becoming helpless metal shells drifting in space. "What are they doing to us?" Kethavar demanded. The answer came directly from the human ship. "We are teaching you the difference between civilization and barbarism. Your weapons depend on electromagnetic systems. Your computers rely on magnetic storage. Your life support uses electronic controls. All of these things obey natural forces we learned to master before your species discovered fire." Admiral Kethavar watched in horror as his mighty fleet became a collection of dark, powerless hulls. The human ship had not fired a single weapon, had not launched any attack they could detect. It had simply demonstrated that the Council's most advanced technology was as helpless as stone knives against their capabilities. The voice spoke one final time. "Council fleet, you have been granted a demonstration of human technology. Consider it an educational experience. We will wait in this system while your leaders decide whether they wish to continue this conversation through diplomatic channels or through more direct means." The human ship moved away from the disabled Council fleet, taking position near the inner planets of the Proxima system. There it waited, a dark sentinel watching over the ruins of Council military pride. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been in session for 6 hours, and panic was beginning to set in. Representatives from 47 species filled the great chamber on Nexus Prime, their various forms of distress creating a symphony of fear throughout the hall. High Counselor Zarthon struggled to maintain order as reports continued streaming in from the Proxima system. The ancient crystalline being had lived through wars, plagues, and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared him for this level of technological superiority from an unknown species. "The tactical analysis is complete," announced General Mextar, his voice hollow with defeat. "The humans disabled our entire fleet without firing a single weapon we could detect. They appear to have complete control over electromagnetic forces." Counselor Velnara of the Hydros delegation raised one of her tentacles to speak. "If they can neutralize our ships by manipulating magnetic fields, what prevents them from doing the same to our cities? Our planets? Our people?" The question hung in the chamber like a death sentence. Every species present had built their civilization using metals, electronics, and magnetic fields. Their computers, their vehicles, their life support systems, their medical equipment, everything depended on electromagnetic technology that these humans could apparently control like a natural force. "We need more information about their capabilities," insisted Dr. Sylvan, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "A single demonstration does not tell us the full extent of their power. One demonstration was enough to cripple our most powerful fleet," growled Security Chief Torgan. "How many more demonstrations do you need to understand we are outmatched?" Admiral Kethavar's holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. The four-armed Draknari officer looked exhausted and defeated. His pride, his fleet, and his confidence had all been shattered in the span of a few minutes. "Council members," Kethavar reported, "the human ship has taken position in the inner Proxima system. They are making no aggressive moves, but their presence is unsettling. My crew reports psychological effects from prolonged observation of their vessel. What kind of effects? Asked Dr. Sylvan, leaning forward with scientific interest. Crew members experience vertigo, nausea, and disorientation when looking at the ship's hull patterns for extended periods. Several officers have reported nightmares featuring geometric designs similar to those on the human vessel. It is as if the ship itself is designed to affect organic minds. The council chamber erupted in worried discussions. Psychological warfare was forbidden under council regulations. But these humans were not bound by council law. If they could affect minds as easily as they controlled electromagnetic systems, no species in the galaxy would be safe from their influence. We must attempt further communication, urged Counselor Jexta of the Mantari Collective. Perhaps they can be reasoned with. Their actions suggest intelligence and restraint. They could have destroyed our fleet but chose not to. Their restraint may be temporary, warned General Mextar. We cannot assume their peaceful intentions will continue if we fail to meet their demands. What are their demands? Asked Zarthon. They have not stated any specific requirements or conditions. Admiral Kethvar consulted his notes. They spoke of correcting territorial claims they consider unearned. They appear to believe the Council has no right to govern the systems we control. The implications of this statement sent another wave of fear through the chamber. If the humans rejected Council authority entirely, they could dismantle the entire galactic civilization that had taken millennia to build. I recommend immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel from border systems, suggested Counselor Thyssical. If these humans decide to expand their territory, we need our people safely away from potential conflict zones. That would create massive panic, objected Velnara. Billions of citizens fleeing their homes would destabilize our entire economy. The economy will not matter if we are all dead or enslaved, Torgon pointed out grimly. The debate continued for another hour before Zarthon called for order. The High Counselor had reached a decision that would determine the future of galactic civilization. We will attempt one more diplomatic contact with the human vessel, Zarthon announced. I will personally travel to the Proxima system to negotiate with their representatives. If they are truly intelligent beings, they must understand that cooperation benefits everyone. High Counselor, Admiral Kethvar protested. That would be extremely dangerous. We do not know their intentions toward Council leadership. The risk is acceptable, Zarthon replied. If these humans want to establish dominance through fear, meeting with our highest-ranking official may appeal to their sense of hierarchy. The vote was close, but the Council agreed to Zarthon's proposal. The High Counselor would travel to Proxima aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Voice, accompanied by a small escort of ships that had not been present during the fleet's humiliation. 3 days later, Zarthon's diplomatic mission arrived at the edge of the Proxima system. The High Counselor stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the disabled Council fleet drifting helplessly in space. The sight filled him with sadness for the brave crews trapped in those dead ships. The human vessel appeared on their sensors long before it became visible. The ship's massive energy signature dominated their detection equipment like a star that had learned to move through space under its own power. Open communication channels, Zarthon commanded. All frequencies, all languages. Attention, human vessel, the High Counselor began, his crystalline voice carrying the weight of authority built over centuries of leadership. I am High Counselor Zarthon, elected representative of the Galactic Council. I come to seek peaceful resolution to our current misunderstanding. The response came immediately, speaking directly to the minds of everyone aboard the diplomatic ship. High Counselor Zarthon, we have been expecting you. The casual tone suggested the humans had been monitoring Council communications, perhaps for much longer than anyone realized. Zarthon felt a chill at the implications, but continued with his diplomatic mission. I wish to discuss the terms under which our species might coexist peacefully, Zarthon said. Surely beings of your obvious intelligence and capability can find common ground with the Council. Common ground, the voice repeated thoughtfully. An interesting concept. Tell us, High Counselor, what gives your Council the right to govern territories you never earned? The Council was formed through voluntary association of species seeking mutual benefit and protection, Zarthon explained. Our authority comes from the consent of the governed. Consent of the governed, the voice mused. And what of species who were never asked for their consent? What of territories claimed by force and held through military intimidation? Zarthon felt uncomfortable with the direction of this conversation. The Council's history was not entirely peaceful, though they preferred not to discuss their more aggressive expansion policies. All civilizations have complex histories, Zarthon replied diplomatically. The Council seeks to provide stability and prosperity for all species under its protection. Protection, the voice said, and there was definitely amusement now. From what do you protect them, High Counselor? From threats like yourselves? Before Zarthon could respond, the human ship began moving again. It approached the diplomatic fleet with the same impossible grace it had shown during the military encounter. As it drew closer, details of its alien construction became visible on their screens. The ship's hull was not merely black. It seemed to absorb light itself, creating a void in space shaped like a vessel. The geometric patterns covering its surface pulsed with energy that hurt to observe directly. Strange protrusions and extensions suggested technologies completely unlike anything in Council databases. Your ship is remarkable, Zarthon said, trying to maintain diplomatic composure despite his growing fear. Your species has obviously achieved incredible technological advancement. We have learned to work with natural forces rather than against them, the voice replied. Your technology fights against physics. Ours flows with universal principles your species has not yet discovered. The human ship stopped directly in front of the diplomatic fleet, close enough that its hull filled their view screens. Zarthon could see individual details of the alien construction, curves and angles that seemed mathematically impossible, materials that reflected no light but somehow remained visible. What do you want from the Council? Zarthon asked directly. We want you to understand your place in the galaxy, the voice answered. You are children playing with weapons you do not comprehend, claiming authority over territories you cannot truly control. It is time for adult supervision. The words hit Zarthon like physical blows. The most advanced civilization in known space was being dismissed as children by beings they had never heard of until a week ago. We are willing to negotiate boundaries and spheres of influence, Zarthon offered desperately. Surely accommodation can be reached between our peoples. Accommodation will be reached, the voice agreed. The terms will be ours to set. Your role will be to learn and obey. The human ship began to withdraw, leaving the diplomatic fleet alone with their shattered pride and growing terror. As it moved away, the voice spoke one final time. High Counselor Zarthon, return to your council. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. High Counselor Zarthon had just finished his report on the diplomatic mission to Proxima, and the silence that followed was more terrifying than any scream of panic. 47 species sat in their designated areas, each representative processing the implications of humanity's casual dismissal of galactic civilization. The ancient crystalline being at the center podium looked older than his centuries. His normally bright internal light dimmed with exhaustion and fear. So they consider us children, whispered Counselor Velnara, her aquatic form trembling in its environmental suit. Beings who have built interstellar civilizations, who have mastered faster-than-light travel, who have created art and literature across thousands of worlds. We are children to them. General Mextar stood slowly, his massive frame towering over the other representatives. The veteran military commander had fought in dozens of conflicts, but his voice shook as he spoke. The tactical implications are clear. They do not consider us equals. They do not view this as a negotiation between sovereign powers. To them, we are primitives who have wandered into territory that belongs to their superiors. Dr. Sylvan, the Council's chief xenobiologist, raised a tentative hand. Perhaps we are misunderstanding their communication methods. Different species often have cultural concepts that translate poorly. Their words might not mean what we think they mean. Their words were accompanied by the casual destruction of our most powerful fleet, Torgun growled. I think their meaning was quite clear. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter as representatives discussed the situation in their native languages. Fear pheromones from various species created a complex chemical atmosphere that made everyone even more anxious. Admiral Kethvar's holographic projection appeared in the center of the chamber. The Draknari officer looked haggard, his normally perfect military bearing replaced by the exhausted posture of a defeated commander. Council members, Kethvar reported, I have additional information that may be relevant to our discussion. My technical teams have been analyzing the method used to disable our fleet. What did you discover? Asked Zarthon. The humans did not simply manipulate our electromagnetic systems, Kethvar explained. They demonstrated complete mastery over fundamental forces that we barely understand. They controlled magnetic fields with the precision we use to control gravity. They treated the laws of physics like tools in a workshop. The implications sank in slowly. Every species in the Council had built their technology around the same basic principles of physics. They used electromagnetic energy for power, magnetic fields for data storage, electronic circuits for computation. If humanity could control these forces as easily as the Council controlled artificial gravity, then no technology in their civilization would be safe from human interference. They could shut down our cities, realized Councillor Jexta. Our transportation systems, our communication networks, our life support. Everything depends on electromagnetic technology they can control at will. It gets worse, Kethvar continued grimly. My sensors detected gravitational anomalies around their ship that should be impossible. They appear to manipulate space-time itself for propulsion, if they can bend gravity as easily as they control magnetism. The sentence hung unfinished because everyone understood the implications. Gravity was the force that held planets together, that kept stars burning, that determined the structure of the entire universe. If humans could manipulate gravity like a tool, they could destroy star systems with the same ease they had disabled the Council fleet. How is this possible? Demanded Velnara. How can one species develop such advanced technology while remaining unknown to our vast sensor networks? Maybe they have not been unknown, suggested Dr. Sylvan quietly. Maybe we simply did not recognize them as a technological species. The chamber fell silent again as this possibility sank in. Every species in the Council had assumed that advanced civilization would look similar to their own. Cities, ships, communication networks that could be detected across interstellar distances. But what if humanity had developed along completely different lines? They could have been watching us for centuries, Zarthon said slowly, studying our technology, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this moment. But why reveal themselves now? Asked Torgan. If they have such overwhelming advantages, why not remain hidden? Admiral Kethvar consulted his notes. During our encounter, they mentioned seeking those who would claim dominion over the stars. They seemed specifically interested in our territorial claims and military capabilities. They were evaluating us, General Mextar realized, testing our responses, measuring our technology, determining whether we pose a threat to their interests. And we failed the test, added Velnara bitterly. The discussion continued for hours as representatives tried to process their new reality. Everything they had believed about their place in the galaxy had been shattered by a single encounter with an unknown species. They were no longer the advanced civilizations they had thought themselves to be. They were primitives who had attracted the attention of beings so far beyond their understanding that meaningful resistance was impossible. What are our options? Asked Councillor Thysicol finally. Zarthon looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of galactic civilization's leaders. Based on our encounters with humanity, we have three choices. We can submit to their authority and hope they prove benevolent rulers. We can attempt to flee to regions of space they have not yet claimed, or we can fight and face certain destruction. Submission is unacceptable, declared Torgan. My species has never bowed to conquerors. Your species has never faced conquerors with this level of technological superiority, Mextar pointed out. Pride is a luxury we may no longer be able to afford. What about negotiation? Suggested Jexta. Surely they can be reasoned with. Intelligent beings must recognize the value of cooperation over domination. They offered cooperation, Zarthon reminded the chamber. On their terms. They want us to learn and obey. The phrase sent chills through representatives of dozens of species. Learning and obeying implied a teacher-student relationship, where humanity held absolute authority over Council civilization. It was the kind of arrangement typically imposed on primitive species who had just discovered fire, not on advanced civilizations that had built interstellar empires. We need more information, Dr. Sylvan insisted. One ship does not represent an entire species. Perhaps these humans have internal disagreements. Perhaps we can find factions willing to negotiate more favorable terms. Or perhaps this one ship represents their least advanced technology, General Mextar said grimly. Perhaps what we have seen is their equivalent of a patrol boat, not their main battle fleet. The chamber fell into another terrified silence as this possibility sank in. If the massive vessel that had casually destroyed their fleet was merely a scouting ship, then humanity's true military capabilities were beyond imagination. I recommend we begin emergency preparations, Zarthon announced. All essential government functions should be moved to secure locations. Critical infrastructure should be hardened against electromagnetic interference, and we should prepare for the possibility of mass evacuation from core systems. You believe they will attack our homeworlds? Asked Velnara. I believe we have no idea what they will do next, Zarthon replied honestly. We are dealing with minds that think on scales we do not comprehend, using technology that violates our understanding of physical law. The only certainty is that our old way of life is ending. As the council session concluded, representatives began the grim task of returning to their homeworlds with news that would shatter the confidence of billions of citizens. The age of council dominance over local space was over, before most species had even realized it had begun. In the Proxima system, the human ship waited patiently for the galaxy's new students to decide whether they would accept their education willingly or require more direct instruction in the realities of cosmic power. The great game of galactic politics had ended, and humanity had won before most players had realized the game was being played. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The Galactic Council still existed, but it now operated under what humanity politely called advisory supervision. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime hosted the same representatives from 47 species, but their discussions were guided by principles that had been carefully explained by their new human colleagues. High Counselor Zarthon stood at his familiar podium, but the ancient crystalline being now shared his authority with Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Systems. The human officer sat quietly at a simple table to one side of the chamber, her presence more influential than armies. The Proxima territorial dispute has been resolved, Zarthon announced to the assembled representatives. The 3 species involved have accepted the human-mediated settlement and will share the system's resources according to the new resource allocation protocols. There were no objections. There had not been objections to any human suggestions for months. The Council had learned that humanity's recommendations were not really suggestions at all. Admiral Kethvar watched the proceedings from his position as the new Council liaison to human space. The Draknari officer had been promoted after his encounter with the human ship, though everyone understood that promotion meant designated point of contact for beings who could destroy us without effort. The changes had not all been negative, Kethvar had to admit. Human technology had upgraded council systems beyond recognition. Their ships now moved faster than ever before, protected by energy shields that made their old defensive systems look like paper. Medical advances from human databases had eliminated diseases that had plagued council species for millennia. But the price of these gifts was the knowledge that they came from beings who viewed galactic civilization as children in need of guidance. Captain Chen, Counselor Velnara addressed the human representative. Our species would like to thank humanity again for the water purification technology you have provided. The improvements to our homeworld's ocean systems have been remarkable. Captain Chen smiled with an expression that still unsettled many council species. Human facial expressions translated poorly to beings who had evolved different communication methods. You are welcome, Counselor. The technology is a simple application of magnetic field manipulation. Your engineers should be able to maintain the systems with minimal training. Simple application. The words that had become a constant reminder of the gap between human and council understanding. Things that humanity considered elementary required teams of the council's best scientists to comprehend. Dr. Sylvan raised a tentative hand. Captain Chen, our xenobiology teams would be very interested in learning more about human evolutionary history. How did your species develop such advanced understanding of fundamental forces? An interesting question, Captain Chen replied. Humans evolved on a planet with unusually strong magnetic fields and frequent gravitational anomalies. We learned to work with these forces out of necessity. What you call advanced technology, we consider basic survival skills. The explanation sent chills through the chamber. Humanity had developed godlike powers simply to survive on their homeworld. The implication suggested that Earth was a place where the laws of physics operated differently, where beings had to master universal forces just to build their first civilizations. How many other human worlds exist? Asked General Mextar carefully. The question had been on everyone's minds, but no one had dared ask until now. Captain Chen's smile grew slightly wider. That information is not currently relevant to Council operations. Focus on your local responsibilities, General. The dismissal was polite but absolute. Humanity had made it clear that Council species were not ready to learn about the true scope of human civilization. They were being given knowledge on a need-to-know basis, like students progressing through carefully designed lessons. If I may ask, Counselor Jexita ventured, what is humanity's long-term plan for this region of space? Stability, Captain Chen answered immediately. This local cluster contains 47 intelligent species who have developed space travel capability. You represent significant potential, but also significant risk if left without proper guidance. Risk to whom? Asked Torgan bluntly. Captain Chen's expression grew serious. To yourselves primarily, but also to others who live in deeper space. The galaxy has layers, Security Chief Torgan. You have just graduated from the shallow end to slightly deeper water. The metaphor was one humanity used frequently when discussing galactic politics. It implied that Council space was a training ground, a safe area where young species could learn interstellar civilization under careful supervision. What lives in the deeper water? Zarthon asked quietly. Beings who are to humanity what humanity is to you, Captain Chen replied. Ancient intelligences who view our entire cluster as a nursery for developing species. They have been waiting to see if humanity was ready to take responsibility for local affairs. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The revelation that humanity itself answered to even more powerful beings was almost too much for Council minds to process. If humans were godlike compared to Council species, what did that make their superiors? So we are your responsibility now, Velnara said slowly. Just as you are responsible to these deeper powers. Precisely, Captain Chen confirmed. The universe operates on hierarchies of capability and responsibility. Each level protects and guides those below while answering to those above. Admiral Kethvar found his voice first. How many levels exist in this hierarchy? More than you need to know about, Captain Chen replied. Your concern should be performing well enough at your current level to earn advancement to the next. Species that prove capable of responsible self-governance eventually graduate to higher roles in galactic civilization. And species that do not prove capable? Asked General Mextar grimly. Captain Chen's smile faded entirely. Are gently guided toward more suitable activities. Or, in extreme cases, are removed from positions where they might cause harm to themselves or others. The euphemism was clear enough. Species that failed to meet the standards set by their supervisors would be eliminated or reduced to primitive status. The Council had been given a chance to prove themselves worthy of continued existence at their current technological level. What must we do to prove our worthiness? Zarthon asked. Learn to cooperate instead of compete, Captain Chen explained. Develop your population sustainably. Treat less advanced species with respect, rather than exploitation. Show that you can be trusted with the responsibilities that come with interstellar civilization. The requirements seemed reasonable on the surface, but everyone in the chamber understood the underlying message. Humanity would be watching everything the Council did, judging every decision, evaluating their progress toward some unknown standard of acceptability. How long do we have to prove ourselves? Asked Dr. Sylvan. Time is not the limiting factor, Captain Chen replied. Capability is. When you demonstrate that you can manage your local affairs without constant supervision, you will be granted more independence. Until then, human oversight will continue. As the Council session ended, representatives filed out of the chamber with mixed feelings of gratitude and terror. Humanity had saved them from their own destructive tendencies while making it clear that this salvation came with conditions. Admiral Kethvar remained behind as the chamber emptied. Approaching Captain Chen's table, the human officer looked up at him with what might have been sympathy. You have questions, Admiral. Many questions, Kethvar admitted. But I suspect most of them have answers I am not ready to understand. Wisdom, Captain Chen agreed. The mark of a species with potential for advancement. Will we ever truly understand what humanity is? Kethvar asked. Will we ever see the deeper layers you mentioned? Captain Chen stood and walked to the great view screen that showed the stars beyond Nexus Prime. In the distance, almost invisible against the stellar background, the dark shape of a human ship maintained its eternal watch over Council space. Perhaps, she said finally, if you prove worthy of the knowledge, the universe is vast, Admiral, and full of wonders that would drive lesser minds to madness. But it is also full of opportunities for growth and advancement. She turned back to face him with that unsettling human smile. Your species has potential. All Council species do. That is why we are here. That is why we revealed ourselves when we did. You reached the point where you needed guidance to progress further, and we provided it. What would have happened if you had not intervened? Kethvar asked. Territorial wars would have escalated, Captain Chen replied matter-of-factly. Resource conflicts would have intensified. Within a few centuries, you would have destroyed yourselves or been destroyed by others. Many species reach this critical juncture. Most do not survive it without help. The casual discussion of galactic extinction sent shivers through Kethvar's exoskeleton. Humanity spoke of species extinction the way Council officers discussed routine patrol schedules. So you are our saviors as well as our supervisors, Kethvar observed. We are your teachers, Captain Chen corrected. Whether you graduate or repeat the course depends entirely on how well you learn the lessons we provide.